How's it going, you guys? So in this video I want to talk about the time frame of NOFAP benefits, okay? And so when I'm talking about NOFAP, I'm talking about removing porn and self-ejaculation from your life, okay? It's very important when we're talking about NOFAP that we clarify we're also talking about no porn, because one of the there's two drivers for these, substantial benefits that people experience. The first one is the horrible effect that porn has on the brain. I think pornography is probably the worst part about fapping. It's the overwhelming dopamine response and overstimulation of dopamine receptors that pornography inflicts on the brain. It's like a hit of drugs, and it's fucking horrible. And I think it's the main reason why people can't stop fapping. It's not the fapping, it's the porn. But I also believe that semen retention seems to have extreme benefits as well. And this is coming from a guy who has no trouble, getting real sex with real women, but somebody who, despite, even in my times where I was like a man whore, I was still addicted to porn. It was the most horrible thing. It's not that. Okay, so I'm just going to get into the timeline, right? The timeline of benefits. Okay. Look, the very first stage in the time frame of benefits for NoFap would be probably within the first 4 days. So, immediately after jacking off to porn or jacking off in general, typically it'll take about 3 days. You'll have 3 days of just like feeling like you're living in a haze. Your brain is so unfocused and scatterbrained. And every little bit of distraction and procrastination, every little bit of laziness, um, it's going to attack you in the first 3 days. Like, you're going to feel so unfocused, scatterbrained, and you're going to feel down, unmotivated. You're going to feel like crap, okay? You're going to feel like crap. You're going to feel anxious and depressed and uncomfortable, and you're probably most prone to relapsing in those first 3 days. That's why most people, they can't go a day without ejaculating. It's because it's the first, those first 3 days are rough, and people feel like crap, and then they want to jack off to get rid of the crappy feeling, to escape the feeling, and it's a cycle of pain and ejaculation and porn that just keeps going on and on. But once you hit about the fourth day, I'd say about the fourth day, at least for me, and I've been doing this a long time, the fourth day is when you start to feel productive. You start to feel more at ease. You start to feel like the fog has kind of lifted a little bit, and you feel better, okay? So then you hit the 1 week mark, okay? So the 1 week mark is usually when, it's weird, it's almost like exactly 7 days after ejaculating. And I have a tracker to track my relapses. And typically for me, I might relapse like once every 2 months, maybe. Over time of doing NoFap, your relapses will happen less frequently and less frequently over time. But it's such a horrible addiction that it's hard to remove porn and masturbation from your life completely, if you have decades of doing it right. But what I've noticed is after about 7 days, you start to, like, the urges are horrible. Like, the urges are at their worst 7 days later. It's weird. It's like that seventh day, they just kick in. And if you can get past that, you continue with the happiness benefits and things for a couple days. But I think after maybe like 10 to 12 days after your last relapse, you're probably going to feel maybe like kind of just like average. You're not going to feel the same boosts in productivity and stuff that happened after the first 4 days. And that might just be because you're starting to get used to just being like a normal, highly functional human being. So you don't notice the benefits as much, mainly because you you forget that they even exist. You forget what it was like before you ejaculated. You forget how shitty you felt in those first 3 days of watching after watching porn and ejaculating. Um, and then after about 2 weeks, okay, the 2 week mark, the 14th day after relapsing, you're probably going to feel urges again. Okay, it's weird. Like like the 7th day and then the 14th day are like the worst. For me, that was when that's always been when I would be most prone to relapsing. Okay, so when you first start NoFap, you'd be lucky to go 4 days. Okay, because in those first 4 days are when you first start to relapse because you feel like shit so much. But after a while of having these long month-long streaks, you start to see how shitty you feel watching porn, and you start to see how it affects you. And so you realize those shitty feelings you feel in the first 4 days are, um, that's, that's the porn. That's the porn affecting you. And so it's easier to get past those first 4 days the longer that you do this, and the more like streaks you get that are longer than a month, because that's when the real benefits start. But for me, it was always the first. It was always the seventh day or the 14th day, and on my tracker, I notice a pattern that's typically the common relapse for me. I think most people feel that. So I think on the 14th day is when the urges get really really hardcore, and so the second week, after the second week, you should start to feel a couple urges, some really strong bouts of urges, but then around the third week they should fade away. Now I think on the third week is typically when a flatline might happen. Flatline is basically where your dopamine receptors go back. They start to um, like revert back to how they were before, but typically they're extremely desensitized. So you might feel like all the things that would normally bring you pleasure no longer bring you pleasure. Like you just feel flat. Okay, that's what they call it, a flat line, and mostly your libido is completely shot. Now, a lot of people claim that they notice a flat line that lasts forever, and the reason why this might be the case is because your brain has been wired to only get aroused by pornography for so long. Your brain is literally wired to fornicate with these pornography images. And so, flatline, a lot of times, is just your body is not wired to be aroused by regular real women, and it's not wired to be aroused by normal productive activities. So if you feel unmotivated and you feel depressed during that flat line, especially after the second or the third week, then that's what's happening with you. And so what you got to do is, like, there's a variety of things you can do, but typically people's nutrition's not on check. They're not giving their body the proper precursors that it needs in order to create neurotransmitters, like dopamine, endorphins, and serotonin, acetylcholine. And these things are required in order for you to feel good, feel motivated, and to feel genuine pleasure from natural things in life, right? I think a lot of people, they have to use porn to feel that pleasure because they're not eating a diet that gives their body the nutrients that it needs to produce those things naturally. And that's why, I've made videos about exercise and producing endorphins from exercise and things, and how to effectively exercise for mental health. And I think that if you use these strategies that a normal, healthy human being needs to use anyway, then that's key for getting past the flat line, is getting your body to produce motivation and endorphins naturally. But that takes real work. And I think most people, they relapse around the second or the third week, because that's when you have to do real self-development work. Most people are addicted to porn, partially because porn is an addictive drug, but the other reason is because they have nothing else going for them in their life that would produce endorphins naturally. They don't read books, they don't have fulfilling relationships, they don't have projects that they can work on, they don't have a purpose. They have negative self-talk and they hate their jobs. So of course they're going to resort to porn and addictions if the rest of their life is not something worth living. So around the second or third week is when you really got to do that deep self-development work, okay? Um, and I would combine this with no surf, like get off social media, realize that you're addicted to scrolling through videos, like on YouTube, scrolling through the recommended videos where you're watching this video. You're probably doing that, aren't you, jackass? Scrolling through articles, scrolling through Facebook. Your brain is addicted to porn, it's addicted to scrolling, and it's addicted to orgasm. And those are all horrible addictions that combine together in pornography. And you've got to just remove all of those addictions completely and instead addict your mind to self-development work, reading books, and these things, right? That's the only way you can conquer this addiction and feel amazing. So anyway, once you get to about 4 weeks, okay, that's the first month down the drain. The first month, like one whole month after your last relapse, after your last ejaculation, after your last viewing of porn. And by the way, if you're peaking, if you're watching porn, just a little bit of porn here and there, you're going to relapse eventually. And every time you got to reset. Because that porn fucks up your brain. Okay, that counts as a relapse whenever you peak at porn. So after one whole month, what happens is you start to feel euphoria, okay? You start to feel well-being. You start to feel more confident. After, like 4 weeks after your last relapse in porn, that's the most commonly reported time frame when people start to report their magical attraction benefits. Where it seems like women are just like magically attracted to you. This is the most common occurrence during that time frame, 4 weeks after, okay? But it might vary. It might be 6 weeks for some people. Depends on how bad your porn addiction was, and it also depends on your diet and how you get past the flat line. Like how you get past the 2 to 3 week mark, okay? And if you get everything on check, like I mentioned, you'll get all the benefits around 4 to 8 weeks. Okay, 1 to 2 months after relapsing is where the real magic happens, and I have to say the greatest happiness in my life, like it's like feeling like you're a kid again. You start to feel that health, that vitality, that naive excitement, and that energy for life. Okay, after about 1 to 2 months of semen retention combined with porn, or combined with no porn. Okay, it's an amazing feeling, and I believe the main reason is because your dopamine receptors are entirely responsible for your energy, for your motivation, for all of the characteristics involved in that childlike health, vitality, and energy that you felt like as a kid. Because as a kid, I mean, I guess kids these days are addicted to their phones. But when I was a kid, okay, mind you, I was born in 1991, and I was a kid until like 2000s. I used to run around the playground and drive my parents insane, climbing trees. I never had instant gratification. I didn't even watch TV besides Power Rangers and Barney. And so my brain was not hijacked by porn and these other behaviors that nowadays kids are hooked on. And so when you reset your brain to the natural human state, you're able to do all the things you've always wanted to do. You're able to, upgrade your jobs, get the type of girlfriend you want, get the type of friendships. You see all these amazing transformations, guys. Look up these transformation videos of people. All these people who do NOFAP, their life starts changing, and it's usually after the first month. Like they're like, oh well, I was doing NOFAP, but then I got a girlfriend after the first month. And it's like these virgin people that have never had a girlfriend in their lives, and all of a sudden they magically get girlfriends. Like, for me, I never had that problem. Like, I've been addicted to porn since I was like 11. It's horrible. But I've had not I've had no problem getting girls since I lost my virginity, which was like I think I was like 16 when I lost my virginity, which is pretty late, right? But you know, once I lost my virginity, man, it was woof. Damn, I just started to just I just shit. It was game over for the dating world. All the other guys so jealous of me. And rightfully so. But despite my success with women, I was still addicted to porn, and it just consumed my life until I started NoFap around 2014. Um, so, yeah, I mean, and every single time I hit the 1 month mark, everything in my life just starts to come to me. It's not. It's almost like you don't have to work towards getting girls. Now they just naturally gravitate towards you. And it really seems like they can sense that you haven't ejaculated in forever. And I think that's very powerful. And, you know, there's never, realistically speaking, there's not going to be science that can really prove that this is true or that there's validity to this. That's not how science works. They can gather evidence as to, you know, how this might work or if this works or not. But almost every single guy on the planet is addicted to porn and ejaculating. It's going to be very hard to find guys that are on NoFap and don't relapse for somebody to actually do like a placebo controlled, peer reviewed intervention trial with people on NoFap. So all these dumbasses, oh, that's pseudoscience. That's Fantasyland bullshit. There's no way that NoFap can cause all these things. You guys are, it's all placebo. You guys are imagining it. Like, no. And it kind of makes sense when you think about it. The whole purpose of the human organism is to survive. All of our human instincts, like literally the fact that you watch porn, it's a faulty response to your biology's desire to replicate. Like the human condition is all about survival and reproducing. And so it makes sense that, human beings would have some kind of mechanism involved in sensing the most potent, DNA or genetics, right? I mean, do you think if let's say that there was like a female lion, right? Do you think that the female lion would want to have sex with the lion that's most likely to produce a child, or produce with one that has been blowing duds all the fucking time and can't produce a child? Chances are the female lion is going to want to be able to sense who's going to produce a child so her DNA can survive. So anyway, that's the logic behind it. But yeah, it's a fascinating thing, and it doesn't just give you benefits towards, magnetically attracting women, but you will be shooting gallons. Trust me on that one. Especially if you take maca root every day like I do. Maca is amazing. But it'll also boost your creativity and your motivation and your happiness and well-being. And it'll make you feel naturally high. It'll make you feel naturally high. So, yeah. Leave your questions in the comments down below. And if anybody has been, successful enough as I have to experience what it's like to stay away from porn and ejaculation for at least longer than 1 month in a row, post down below. For me, I'm pretty consistent at, going long times without ejaculating, months and months and months. So, but if I do ejaculate, it might be once every 2 months. But it's been becoming less and less frequent as the years have gone by. So post your comments down below. Guys, I'm never gonna lie to you. I think a lot of these NoFap YouTubers probably relapse more than they tell people. But the reason why they don't tell people is because their whole YouTube channel is about how to not relapse. So if they admit that they've relapsed, then it's going to ruin their credibility. Kind of like vegan YouTubers. If they admit that they might have eaten cheese, then they're going to get torched by their tribe. There's no way they can be truthful. So, and I think it's comical that so many people think these people are 100% real, and oh, he could never do that. He talks about how much, animal products are horrible for you, or This guy talks about how horrible porn is, and there's no way that he can lie about relapsing.